As we reported earlier, police in Florida have officially named the man who murdered 6-year-old Adam Walsh back in 1981, finally bringing this case to a close. Adam's parents, John and Reve Walsh, are with us this morning.
Good morning.
I watched part of the news conference yesterday. There was so much emotion in that room. What was that day, what was yesterday like for the both of you? Reve, why don't you start?
Well, we've always called it bittersweet, which capsulizes it, but it was more sweet yesterday because it's something that's not going to change. It's never going to go away. Adam's never going to come back. So this is the best of a poor situation. 27 years of frustration was not anything I would wish on anyone, but the fact that it happened in my lifetime was my goal.
What was your reaction when the police called you and said, you know what, we want to close the books on this?
New chief, real man, apologized to us yesterday, said that some previous people involved in the case way back made some huge mistakes and had basically a defensive position. And it was a very tough day for me because I spent 2 weeks in that police department looking for that little boy, the 2 worst weeks of my life, and went back repeatedly year after year and argued and said, I think you know who killed Adam. It's here.
Yeah.
And was turned down repeatedly. And a new chief comes in and says, you know, I'm going to review it. And 2 real heroes of mine are a guy named Kelly Hancock, who was a former prosecutor in Broward, retired with 300 undefeated homicide cases and said, I put guys on death row with less evidence than they have about Ottis Toole. Joe Matthews, retired homicide detective, who was hired by the Hollywood police initially to help with the investigation, then fired, and put this together, took it to Chief Wagner a year ago and said, there's no question. Huge mistakes have been made in this case. Yeah. Ottis Toole killed Adam Walsh.
Right.
And Chief Wagner said, we owe it to you. And it was a really tough day. We had our children with us. Our 3 children have been born since Adam. But it ended a really long, torturous journey. And I know how many people don't get justice. I live in that world. Lots of people never get their cases closed.
Well, that was one of the things we talked about earlier in the program today. It's not necessarily routine, but it's not atypical that police lose things. Essential pieces of evidence go missing. The thing years ago, when finally DNA technology was up to a point where you could say unequivocally, this guy did this thing, the thing you needed most wasn't there.
Louis Freeh was the then director of the FBI and a big supporter of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which Reve started, and trains cops. Actually, a couple of the Hollywood cops have been there to the National Center. Louis said, let's get the carpet, and I'll test it. I could test it in 2 days.
Yeah.
How could you lose evidence in probably the highest profile murder of a child in Florida history?
In the country?
In the country. But, you know, I'm the biggest supporter of law enforcement. There are lots of times they don't have the training, they're human beings, but there was a lot of tough mistakes. But yesterday, a chief who said it to Reve and I said, we really owe it to you to do this. And the state attorney's office closed the case, exceptionally cleared it. That ended a chapter in our lives.
You've been here so many times talking about other children. You both have made it part of your life's mission to make sure that what happened to your son doesn't happen again. In the end, you can walk away. That's the real question. Can you walk away from this now?
No, it's become our life mission. I mean, you know how life takes you in the strangest ways, and America's Most Wanted is certainly my passion. 21 years, we've caught 1,000 plus fugitives in 35 countries. The National Center is working day and night. As a matter of fact, we're working on a national DNA database. We suffered firsthand the problems with not having a national DNA database.
And you know, so many people help us, and so many people make it possible for us to do productive things towards children's issues and towards the safety of our children. And being there and have done all the work all along, we see new opportunities. People create the ability for us to do it. So we just have to do as much as we can while we've got the ball in our court.
That's what it's all about. Reve, thank you so much, John.
Thank you.